What's up, people? It's Jon Root. Welcome to the Breakaway Podcast. We got a very special podcast episode for you today. We are going back to AmericaFest 2021 at the Phoenix Convention Center. This is the biggest event the conservative movement has ever seen behind basically a presidential rally. This was an event that was monumental for not only me in my career. This is one of the biggest moments I've ever had, but I got to sit down on stage in front of 10,000 people, the same stage that we had Tucker Carlson, Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec, Jesse Waters, some of the biggest names in the conservative movement. I was up there with Cameron Haynes, endurance athlete and bowhunter, UFC fighter Michael Chandler, Super Bowl champion and once known as the NFL's fittest man, as a punter for the New York Giants, Steve Weatherford. We talk about how champions don't kneel, how the left has ruined sports. We look to sports to be an outlet away from everything. Obviously, politics are going to be involved in sports. They have been, and they always will. But there's been a flip of the switch that has not been good for the viewer, the audience, the athletes, the coaches, anyone involved, whether you're playing, coaching, or watching sports. We break that down, and they show their heart behind, here's how you can be comfortable being uncomfortable. Here's what true courage is. Here's what true toughness is, and really break down what we can do to fight back and spread the truth. Because if all we're going to do is complain, we're really not going to make a difference, and really explain how sports is the greatest meritocracy. Sports has been the perfect place to see, hey, how can we bring out the best in society? And I think it's sports, a meritocracy. It doesn't matter where you came from, who you know. Can you get the job done? We break that down. It's a fantastic conversation. I know I really enjoyed it. I hope you do too.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, how you doing out there, huh? Man, look at this crowd. This is really funny to me too. You got three of some of the biggest studs in athletics here. You got Cameron Haynes, endurance athlete over here. Michael Chandler, one of the toughest guys in the UFC. Yeah! Former NFL fittest man, Super Bowl champion Steve Weatherford. And a washed-up D2 punter, Jon Root. Great to meet you.
We celebrate you, man.
A great D2 punter, though.
But I host a sports show with Turning Point USA. We're at TPUSA Breakaway because right now the left, they are not just seeping their politics into sports, they're flooding sports with politics. Sports used to be an outlet away from that. It was the outlet away from politics, the craziness of life. We could just celebrate athletic ability. We could come together. It doesn't matter who you voted for, what your background was, where you're from. That was a place we could unite and come together. But unfortunately, sports has become an unbelievably divisive place. But I want to start with this. Has anyone heard of Enes Kanter Freedom? Anyone heard of Kyrie Irving? Those are a couple guys, along with every single one of you, that have really stood up for their values and what is right. In the sports world, you don't have to agree with everybody, every part of their being, whatever it may be, but there's a chance where you can show true courage, where you can stand up for something and be willing to lose something you hold dear. And his Kanter Freedom has shown that. Someone like LeBron James, that's not true courage. But talk about that, Cameron, because you are unapologetic and unafraid to stand by your values. And it almost seems like every single one of you guys, you're uncancelable. Also, I wouldn't want to see any of you guys in a dark alley, too. Maybe that's why they don't want to mess with you.
Oh,
yeah. What do you think about that? Just showing true courage, Cameron.
I can't hear you. Showing true courage. What about it? Showing true courage.
What do you think that really means to you, Cameron? Just showing that true courage, because true courage.
Showing true courage. Yeah, it's standing up for what you believe in. As you said, not being being unapologetic and being proud of what you're standing for. For me, it's like today, I have many people here. I have a regular job, a 9-to-5 job, and for me, I feel like I'm up here representing guys back at work who would love to have this opportunity, love to say what's important to them. And so that's what we're here doing. And it's just like, to me, it's just standing up for not only for ourselves, but for people we represent, friends, family, co-workers. That's courage to me.
And then when we look at the UFC, that was one of the sports that held the line. Dana White is a great leader. And I think there's yes, absolutely. He's someone that has said, hey, I don't care what your politics are. You're not going to shut us down. We are going to fill arenas, and we're going to provide people an opportunity to get away from the craziness of life. We want to see people like you fight Gaethje almost to the death out there. It felt like a gladiator match there.
I'm still here. By the grace of God, I'm still here. No, but yeah, to your point, I mean, I think what Dana White did during the time when there was so much unrest and there was so much uncertainty, he said, I'm planting my flag, I'm drawing a line in the sand, and I don't care what is going on out there, what limits you put on me. I have a job to do. I have an obligation to the people who I have before me, the people who are in the future. And you saw the growth of the UFC. It was like over 100% growth during this last year and a half, because we were the only sport on TV for months. I think it was 6-8 months. So he really led the charge, led the way, and he led by example. So I was extremely fortunate to have that job security. I know a lot of people were downtrodden, and there was a lot of uncertainty going on. So I was very fortunate, but put it on great shows, making people feel something, because they're not always gonna remember the fights, the punches, the kicks, the wins and losses, but they're gonna remember how you made them feel. And we needed great leaders to stand up and continue in the course of action with complete disregard to previous failures, future opposition, and really make people feel something. And that's why I love this country.
And Steve, I know when we sat down a few months ago, you had a tough story to tell when it came to your Super Bowl reunion. This is one of very few guys that beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Tom Brady's a tough guy to beat in the Super Bowl.
He said that like I was like a position player. I was a punter, but you could still clap.
No, but that was one of the best parts of that game was, I mean, I'm probably like one of maybe a handful of people in the country who are like, 4th down, I can't wait to see this punt. That's it. All my other buddies watching games are like, shut up, I'm going to go get some food while they're punting. But you were by halftime, you had some of the broadcasters say, this guy might be the MVP of the game, and he's a punter. But when it came to this Super Bowl reunion, a lot of people, unfortunately, because you have some blatant government overreach, you have people telling you how to live your life, live in fear, stay indoors, and they're telling you should be terrified about something that we can beat in more than just one way. I know Dana White has talked about that on the Pat McAfee show, saying, hey, vaccine isn't the only way we're going to fight this. There's other ways to fight it, and there's ways to fight back against government overreach. But unfortunately, people during the past few years in the pandemic have missed out on some incredible moments. They've missed out on weddings. Unfortunately, people have been stuck in the hospital by themselves. And people like you that just wanted to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of beating Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, one of the best moments of your life, you got told you can't go there because you're not vaccinated.
I definitely want to answer that question, but before I get rolling, man, the only reason I'm able to be here with you guys is because my wife is with me, and so I don't know where she's at. I think she's sitting somewhere up there, but babe, can you stand up? Somebody point to her where she's at. I think she's over there. I want to honor my wife, man, and the reason I want to thank you. I want to honor my wife because that's truly the reason that I'm able to be here. And I know a lot of you had a lot of places that you could be, but you chose to make the sacrifice and pay the price to be here for something bigger than what you are. I also want to recognize, I'm not sure where he is, but my pastor, who is a spiritual voice in my life, he's here as well. His name's Pastor Jurgen Matisius. If you're here, Pastor Jurgen, stand up and be honored, man. I love you. So thankful for you. And lastly, I would like to honor Charlie Kirk for creating this space for us. To be able to have conversations about things that really matter, like it's such a blessing. I think you guys would agree with me, and I'm honored to be up here with you and share this 30 minutes that we have, and having conversations about things that really matter. And granted, John, like, thank you for saying what you said about, man, it's not right that I didn't get to go back and walk onto the field and be celebrated by all the fans and all the people that love the New York Football Giants. But here's the deal, guys. I mean, there's teachers that are losing their jobs. There's people that work for the government that are losing their jobs because they're standing for something. I heard a quote the other day that really spoke to me. It said, if standing for something burns bridges, I got a pack of matches and we ride at dawn. And I believe that's the spirit inside of this room. I believe that's the spirit inside of this room, and I'm just learning. I've been activated in these last like 5 years. I've really been activated to pursue a knowledge more of government and more of politics, because to be honest with you, I always just stayed out of it because people told me to stay out of it, because you can be canceled. And you have general managers, you have owners that tell you not to use your voice, especially if you're playing for a team in New York. And I love New York, and I honor their owner, and I honor the team, and I honor their fans. But if you're expecting me to compromise on who I am and who I have 6 kids, guys. If you're expecting me to compromise their future, I'm unwilling to do it. So I don't need to be celebrated. I don't need to be honored. I need to stand for something. And if that burns bridges, I've got matches. You want to ride at dawn?
Ride at dawn.
Let's go.
Ride it down, baby. But there's a sense of sports where you look at all 3 of these guys, and this is just masculinity and toughness defined. The values that are instilled in sports are something every single man needs. And unfortunately, you have athletes that use platforms to divide us. And when you have people that are brave enough, like you said, that say, hey, give me the matches. We ride it down. I'm going to hold the line here. I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to be willing to lose something, and willing to lose, game checks, like going back to people like Kyrie Irving. That guy lost a lot of battles, but he won the war because the Brooklyn Nets decided, I don't think we're going to have a chance to compete for a championship or win a championship this year. And this guy held the line and he won the war. And it's fantastic to see.
And if I could add to that, John, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And looking at that Kyrie Irving situation, he stood firm for something. And we could look at the P&L, the profit and loss, and say, oh, he's a loser there. But he stood for something, and so many people, he was in a position of influence, and he stood for something that allowed people to second guess who was telling them what to do and why. And so for that reason, he allowed people to transform their mind because they started to ask questions. And that's why this place is so good. Not only do you all get to ask questions, we get to give you answers. And I believe that these 3 men, and I know John as well, we're humble enough to know. If we don't know, we'll find you somebody else who does. And this experience of 3 or 4 days that we've had, and all these speakers that are up here, not every single person up here has the answer, but I have something on my chest. And I honor what Congresswoman Lauren Boebert came out here and spoke. The first 15 minutes was unbelievable. But then she started to talk about somebody who could truly change things. And it's not Donald Trump. It's not Joe Biden. There's only one way to permanent change, and his name is Jesus Christ. And so I just wanted to honor that.
Man, you're preaching today. Steve Weatherford, come on, he's bringing the heat today. I love it. And I think that's something, we're going to get to that just a little bit later too, about this identity side too, because who's played sports out there? Raise your hand if you played sports. Sports are some of the best years and moments of your life. And going back to the ideals and values instilled in sports, Michael, I want you to talk about how you use your platform to make sure you can actually instill a lot of those values, into your own kids, into the millions of people that follow you, because sports can be that place that unites us unlike anything else. It's so unfortunate to me to see the way sports has gone, because just even look at the Olympics. We can get into the Winter Olympics coming up here, but sports has the ability to bring us together unlike anything else. And it's so sad when people use their platform to divide.
Yeah, sports has always been, for me, a platform and an opportunity to pursue my best self. It's the most authentic and purest form of trying to accomplish something. And as you grow and as you continue to do it at higher and higher levels, from high school to college to professional, being a professional athlete was a dream, a very, very far off dream that I never thought I would be able to accomplish. And then I became one and started to realize I won't get to meet every single person who is a supporter or a follower of mine, but when they buy the pay-per-views or they tune in to watch me fight, or they see me working out and they see the way that I push myself, see the way that I leave no stone unturned in my preparation, that I'm just putting a brushstrokes on this beautiful canvas that I'm trying to paint this masterpiece for everybody to see. And someday for me, my son Hap, my future children will be able to see and say, my dad was this, not because of what he told me he was, but because of the people that I came into contact with who said things about who my dad was, you know? So for me, it's just been an amazing platform, and it is just so pure. And when you're out there and you're in the battles, for me, it's a literal battle, or you're on the football field, or you're out in the woods, or you're running those miles, or you're doing whatever the competition field or court or arena is, you're out there battling against yourself, trying to become your best self and put your God-given abilities and your God-given calling on the line. So it is unfortunate to see it, but eventually you're going to see, just like the Kyrie Irving situation, it got phased out, got faded out. There he is. He's getting back on the court. He's going to be dribbling that basketball and draining threes with a brand new intention, with a brand new platform, with a brand new feeling every single time that he puts up points on the board, because he stood in the face of adversity. He stood in the face of people saying no and slamming a door shut in his face. And eventually that door opens. And I believe that door will continue to open as we continue to put one foot in front of the other, day after day, continuing to be people, one nation under God, indivisible, continuing to move forward.
That's good, Mike. It's good.
And then it seems like Colin Kaepernick is always in the news. Colin Kaepernick. The guy's trying to tell us that the NFL Combine is like the slave trade. He's trying to tell us that guys that get invited to the NFL Combine, and weeks later they could become millionaires, are being poked and prodded and being used. He's lying to you. The guy had a couple good years at quarterback, and then Blaine Gabbert took over. Kaepernick, sit down, please. Because that's not helping anybody. That's not helping sports fans at all come together whatsoever. Because going back to that, what I said earlier, you just want to go to a game and enjoy this. We don't want people telling us how racist this place is, how terrible the country is. And then when you have someone like Michelle Tafoya who jumps on The View, a bunch of talking heads there trying to tell her Colin Kaepernick lost everything. And she said, no. I think he gained a lot. He gained millions of dollars. He gained a huge following, and he's making millions of dollars off dividing you. And then for you, you're unapologetically American. You're a proud American. While other people are kneeling for the flag, you're standing up, you're telling people why this country is great, and it's uncomfortable. You've heard so many people on the stage come up here and give you the tools, give you the resources to tell you how to fight back. And it's wildly uncomfortable. You have tough conversations with your friends, your teammates, so many people around the country. You're about to go home for Christmas, and you might have had some tough conversations during Thanksgiving. But I think because of people like you, Cameron, that are telling you, this is why this country is great, it's uncomfortable running a marathon every single morning, lifting for an hour, then using an 80-pound compound bow. You don't just get this body by being comfortable. All these guys right here. But tell people a little bit more about, that idea of, it's wildly uncomfortable to stand for your values, but how it's worth it, and how uncomfortable it is basically working out every day, because you don't just get this body waking up like that.
Way to go, Cam! Thank you. One thing I've noticed in that, Lauren Boebert, the congressman, we expected her in the backstage there to be about 6 foot tall, the way she got up here, and she was just preaching, really preaching, but she's tiny. It just, to me, it's just that fighting spirit. It's like we all have it. If she can have it, seem like a 6 foot, 6 giant, we all have it. And that's when I look at these guys here, these guys are fighters. And I think we all can be fighters standing up for what we believe in. And there's a saying that says, a man's greatest regret is untapped potential. Michael mentioned it where he's talking about how hard he trains. And he's always, one of his things is see at the top, right? And as a fighter, a real fighter, Lauren's a fighter in her own right, but Michael's in there in the cage fighting, and he's taken some losses, but he's never lost that unwavering belief in himself, where if he puts in the hard work, he's going to get back to the top, and I believe he will. But all these guys give everything they have, and with that untapped potential thing, nobody wants to be on their deathbed and think, what could I have done? And what I see here is every person giving all they got. Every person here, you're here because you're giving all you got. You want to make a difference. That's, I think we owe it. I mean, our life is a gift. We owe it to honoring our life, honoring Jesus, honoring everything we have and stand for by giving the best we got. I mean, and that's what I try to do every day. That's what these guys do too.
And just like Cameron said, you have some tough fights, Michael. Like seeing that out there, I mean, I don't even know if I could take one punch from you. So that's what I think is just so inspiring about watching someone like you in the ring. Man, going back to that Gaethje fight, like both you guys, I know when you jumped on the Breakaway podcast, you were talking about how each one of us went to our own ambulance, and then you tried putting that
We
Yoda
limped
filter.
to our own ambulances. Yeah.
You put that Yoda filter on your face just so people wouldn't see how messed up you were. But it's tough having to fight in an octagon. But it seems like right now, too, we live in this world where it's difficult fighting with our families and our friends online. How do you think fighting has really instilled, this passion and empowerment to know how to fight back and fight back for more than just yourself, but your family, your teammates, everybody that you hold dear?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just continuing to realize whether for me, it's a physical fight. And for me, it's such a beautiful thing. I call it the shiny object. I love to see it on your face that you were moved and you loved to watch the competition. But for me, the fight inside of the cage is just a physical manifestation of the fights that every single person is going through. In our families, in our job, throughout the world, especially these days, especially this day and age, but just continuing, like I said earlier, to put one foot in front of the other, knowing who you are and also knowing whose you are, as well as continuing to realize that, as Cam said, it can never be said enough that we were born into the greatest country on the entire planet. So when you think about what is happening inside of the country and you think about the way that you carry yourself, whether it's inside of your vocation, within the confines of your own home, keeping your own home in order, me looking at my wife and my son as the two most important heartbeats as on the entire planet, and then and only then can I be able to lead by example. So just continuing to do exactly what I can for as long as I can do it, because eventually this road is going to end. This fighting thing is going to end. That shiny object is going to be on YouTube, and I'm going to be an old timer. And once again, it goes back to how you made people feel throughout it, and just continuing to love people, continuing to love on people inside of those disagreements, inside of those differing of opinions. Also, once again, going back to the Kyrie Irving situation, that eventually it gets worn down. Evil gets worn down. Closed doors, they get worn down, and that's just the necessary coiling of the spring for real change to happen. So I'm just blessed to be able to do what I do, the people I get to do it with, and just continue to serve.
It's good, Mike.
I want to make sure we touch on the Olympics too. Obviously, we've talked about Enes Kanter Freedom a lot, and he deserves to be talked about quite a bit because he is one of the only athletes out there that's bringing up real human rights issues. It's pretty easy for a lot of these athletes to come and tell you how terrible America is. They're going to have social justice slogans on the back of their NBA jerseys, but they're not going to allow free Hong Kong. No, China's going to get protected. You've heard a lot of speakers up here and tell you, why has there been no accountability for China? They've ruined our lives for 2 years, and they're getting the honor and opportunity to have the Olympics. And you have someone like Enes Kanter Freedom and said, this is real human rights issues right here. There's genocide happening. There's millions of people dying overseas. And sure, a diplomatic boycott is, like Enes Kanter Freedom said, good, but not enough. So what do you think about this whole Olympic situation? Because it's tough to tell athletes, hey, I know you've worked 4 years for this. This might be your last Olympics, your first and only Olympics. But I think we want to look back years from now, and no one's going to ask, what diplomat from the United States was there? No, we're going to remember the athletes that were there, but I don't think China deserves the honor of having our athletes out there whatsoever.
It's, I believe it all comes down, and just, I can only speak from being an American and from being an athlete. I can't necessarily speak from being a CEO. I can't necessarily speak from being in the lives of what you all are, but you said something that was really powerful, Mike, and and you were talking about identity, and you said it was really important to not just know who you are, but to know whose you are. And I would love to kind of expound on that, because I believe if every single one of us just in this room, right? Like if we can just get serious in this room, every single one of us from over here to over here, this entire back of the room, if we can just get clear on our identity, like who are we? Not like deeper than a Republican, deeper than an American, like who are you? When I'm gone, I have 6 children, and when I'm gone, they're not gonna remember me as an American, they're not gonna remember me as a Republican, they're not gonna remember me as a Super Bowl champion. They're gonna remember the man that I was. And you were talking about legacy things later. I'm not working in this lifetime to create wealth for my family to leave behind. I'm working in this lifetime the way that you work, and the way that you work, and the way that all of you guys work, because you love this country and you love the life that you have. I'm working in this lifetime for inheritance. Inheritance for your children, inheritance for my children. But in order for that to occur, I have to figure out who I am. Because you and I cannot change this country if we're not willing to make change in ourselves. And so what are those character values or traits? What are those virtues or values that are important to you? Because you're the one that gives meaning to the meaning. That's what my mentor Keith Kraft says. And it's very powerful to me. So, we're talking about integrity in voting earlier. If his integrity is important to you, then I challenge each and every one of us inside of this room to be the example of integrity for the Democrats. Like, let's not just be so good and so quick to, and I honor all of you, and I'm all for a good time at like a sporting event, but let's not be so quick to come together for a chant like, let's go Brandon. Like, let's be even more motivated in our own lives to go out there and be the example of the values that we want this country to have. Right? So the change starts with us knowing who we are. And then secondly, and this is the part I want you to clap for. Once you know who you are, you're gonna know what to do. But once you know whose you are, you will know your purpose on this planet. And I wanted to thank you for saying that, man. That was really powerful. Can I add one more thing to the Colin Kaepernick thing? And this is why I feel like he's confused. It says in scripture in John 10:10, the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And I believe Colin Kaepernick is so confused about who he really is that when you and I don't know who we are, we won't live our life on purpose. We'll live our life on a mission. Somebody has created another mission for Colin Kaepernick, and it is my hypothesis that because he does not know his purpose on this planet, he doesn't know whose he is. And so he's used his influence to get people on board with a mission. You and I are not here on this planet for a mission. We're here on this planet for a purpose. But in order for you to really grasp your purpose on this planet, you need to figure out what matters most to you, and then start to design a life that most matters.
Amen to that. And before we got, I know I want you to finish and wrap this thing up, but before we get there, everyone wants to know, how do we make sports great again? How do we make sports a place we could come together and just get away from everything else? Please, I just want to watch videos of you hunting some of the biggest animals in the entire world. Beastly stuff, because I know I've seen The Revenant, and I don't want to be anywhere near a bear. No way, no how. But we all want to know, what can we do to change this? And a lot of speakers up here have given you the tools and the resources to do that. And there's a lot of people, you got to be courageous. This is not a time to sit on the sidelines. It's time to get up, stand up for this place. And I think sports can really be a place where we can ignite that fire, have a spark that just ignites this patriotism. Because, I mean, do we remember like Sammy Sosa? You remember that? Grabbing the American flag and running through the outfield. Do you remember how we came together after 9/11? Do you remember? It doesn't matter what you thought of George Bush whatsoever, but that was the best first pitch I have ever seen, we will ever see. People came together after that, and they felt this patriotism. And what brought people together was sports. Cameron, how do we get sports to be great again?
Well, what I like about sports, I mean, I think the key is just ignore the distractions. I mean, that's one thing that draws me to the mountains, and you talked about, the challenges out on the mountains, is there's no distractions out there. If you're distracted, you're not going to be successful on the hunt. So when I'm in the mountains, it's me, the prey I'm after, the quarry, and I'm looking at the wind, checking the weather, doing what I need to do, no distractions. I think that's when sports is the greatest, when we let all these there's different, who knows what the objective is, but they're distracting us from watching the game and appreciating the athletes and being entertained. I think we just need to get back, eliminate the distractions, appreciate incredible athletes like these guys here. I mean, I'm a bow hunter up here sitting with the NFL Super Bowl champion, probably the most jacked punter I've ever seen. Have you ever seen a punter?
That's not really saying much. It's like the smartest guy in the short bus. But thank you.
Michael Chandler, a true warrior. But when I can just appreciate what they offer us as athletes, that's when sports is great, in my opinion. You know, I don't need to know all the other nonsense that goes along with it. Just let's just appreciate what they offer.
Well, and if I could piggyback off that too, even going back to not to continue to tout up the UFC as well, but what the UFC did during the time when everybody shut down or everybody was interjecting those distractions, they should be praised for it. We should be praising organizations like the UFC who said, we don't care about the distractions, we don't care about what's going on. And of course, some of the biggest sports, the NFL or the NBA or one of the biggest sports that are on TV the most, of course, they're going to interject some distractions here and there because that's what they want to do. But some of the other sports, some of the more niche sports, some of the much more smaller sports that don't get the primetime TV, news coverage, media coverage of what they're doing and the pureness of those sports as well. So I think just piggybacking on that, continuing to tout up, talk up, and put on a platform the organizations and the people that are deciding not to put those distractions in the forefront of the minds of people.
And then I'm going to tell you how I think sports can be great again before we have you wrap it up with us, Steve Weatherford. Can we give it up for these guys once again, too? These are incredible, incredible athletes. So honored to be up here with you guys. What's going to make sports great again is men getting the heck out of women's sports. Get out of here. Leave. You have no business. Leah Thomas, you swam for the men's team for 3 years and you decided to join the women's team for your final senior season. Take a hike. Try to beat the men. It's ruining women's sports. And it infuriates me that the feminists are nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found with a situation like this. They're ruining women's sports. We should stand up for women in these places because we have some incredible athletes that if our athletes end up going over there to Beijing, these women athletes are going to destroy the rest of the women across the world. And I'm just so happy that we have women out there that hopefully just stand firm. And we have people that are fighting back against this transgender movement that's ruining it. And we need to get politics out of sports. We need to get back to a patriotism. We need to get back to a place where we have an outlet once again, away from it all. Because we want to just celebrate this competition. We want to celebrate athleticism. We want to just celebrate not Tom Brady beating my team. The worst decision I made in my life was to become an Atlanta Falcons fan. Yikes. That was tough. That was tough. But I enjoy watching sports week after week, and I don't want politics shoved down my throat. If I want politics, I will go to Fox News. I will go to Fox Nation. I will get it there in a lot of different outlets. I don't want it in the ESPN broadcast. I don't want ESPN telling me and pushing this hoax again that there was a noose in Bubba Wallace's locker or in his stall, whatever it may be. That's just trying to divide people. We need to get sports back to unifying. But I want to wrap up with this. We talked a lot about identity. And a lot of people have played sports in this crowd or watching right now, and they get so stuck in this is who I am. I am Steve Weatherford, the NFL Super Bowl champion. I'm Michael Chandler, top 5 in the UFC lightweight division. Might be taking on Conor McGregor next. I'm Cameron Haynes. I will take on the baddest beast, and I will run as far as you want me to run, but that's not who you guys are. That's what you guys do. Take it away, Steve.
Well, I wanted to, can we give a round of applause to Jon Root? Thank you, man. Thank you for facilitating this. And Cameron, Michael, man, I honor you guys. Thank you for being a part of this. And they actually budgeted me the last 3 minutes of our time that we have for you. And I have something really important that I want to discuss with you because, you know, we talk about this identity and it's really easy. This is the first time I've met Cameron Haynes, by the way, and I was like so excited backstage to meet him. I'm just like you guys, man. I'm excited to meet these guys as well. But the reason that I share that is I want you guys to know just how normal these people are that sit up here. Yes, they've done extraordinary things, but I mean, if I can just share for myself personally, I mean, it was no more than 4 years ago I was addicted to pills. It was no more than 4 years ago that I was addicted to pornography. So these are things that I used as coping mechanisms because the identity that I had wasn't firm. And so I allowed the world to conform me to the patterns. And then when I get home at night and I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm realizing the things that I'm posting, the things that I'm saying, I'm actually not that person. So when I challenged everybody to be a man or a woman of integrity, if we're expecting that from the people on the other side of the aisle, like, let's be that example. But for a lot of those years, thank you. For a lot of those years, guys, I was saying the right things. And for the most part, I was doing the right things. But I'll promise you this, if you knew the things that I did when nobody was around, there's no way that Turning Point USA would have me here on this stage. But then I got really serious about who I am and whose I am. And so I just want to give everyone here an opportunity to get really, really clear on who you are. And if you would, I would love to read you like a 60-second poem and then ask you a question and introduce you to a tribe of men that are very special to me. So this poem is written by my mentor. His name is Keith Craft. Being your best is hard. Being normal is hard. Making wise decisions is hard. Making bad decisions is hard. Being in shape is hard. Being out of shape is hard. Losing weight is hard. Being fat is hard. Being disciplined is hard. Being lazy is hard. Getting outside of your comfort zone and coming to an event like this to celebrate something bigger than yourself is hard. But staying at home and living in a country like this is hard too. Making a lot of money is hard. Being rich is hard. Being poor is hard. Having great relationships is hard. Having bad relationships is hard. Having a lot of things is hard. Having nothing is hard. Fighting for your marriage. I've been married for almost 15 years and I honored my wife because she should have left me 3 or 4 times, guys. Divorce is hard. Marriage is hard. Living on purpose is hard. Living off purpose is hard. Doing life God's way is hard, but doing life any other way is hard. So the question that I have for you guys is, and we talked about it earlier, there's only one way to permanent change. And I tried every single thing that I could under the sun. And I had the world at my fingertips when I was a professional athlete. But there was no pill, there was no powder, there was no endorphins, there was no cold plunge, there was no Wim Hof breathing that was gonna fix the God-sized hole inside of me. And so I'd love for my mighty men, I'm not sure where you guys are sitting. They're sitting in the back, they got the flashlights right there. So they got Jesus is King shirts like I do as well. And so, love you guys, man. Thank you. And all these men flew in from all over the country just to be here and just to pray a special prayer with you. So I just wanted to thank you guys for having me there, for having me here. And I want to honor the next speaker that's coming up. She's coming up in 5 minutes. And so I wanted to be right here and pray with you guys and make that special declaration that you're going to give your life to Jesus Christ. Or maybe you're standing here and you're like, you know what, I've already done that, but it still doesn't feel right. Let's go out there. Let's rededicate this thing. Or this is a great time of year. It's 2021. Next year starting in about 9 days, guys. What decision are you going to make right now that's going to change tomorrow? Because if we really want to change this country, if you guys are really dedicated to changing this country and changing the world, be bold enough to step outside and get some change in you. Because there's only one way to permanent change. I love you guys. Thank you, Turning Point USA. And thank you guys, man. I love you.
Hey,
and we got
again,
some t-shirts to throw out as well.
Michael Chandler, Cameron Haynes.
God bless you guys.
But wasn't that just a fantastic conversation? Because you don't hear these kind of conversations really anywhere else. And that's the heart behind Breakaway here. And that's why we have people like these absolute studs on the stage that say, yeah, I want to do this. I want to partner with Turning Point USA. I want to partner with Breakaway. I want to partner with Jon Root. I want to partner with your team because there's not other outlets to share about this stuff. Let's have an open and honest civil discourse, a good discussion about how we can get sports to be unifying again, get sports to be great again. We need that. This is something that conservatives cannot give up on. We talk about how there's this culture war, and how are we fighting it? Because of events like AmericaFest 2021. You had some of the biggest country artists in the entire country at AmericaFest 2021. You had people like Brantley Gilbert that were receiving a lot of backlash. And then I know even people like Michael Chandler, there was a lot of hit pieces. out on him saying, I can't believe you're going to go to an event like this. But we can't listen to these people that just want to divide us, want to tell us that, hey, you're terrible people for loving the foundation of this country and want to do whatever you can to protect that foundation and those foundational values. I am so appreciative of people like Steve Weatherford, Michael Chandler, and Cameron Haynes, and appreciative of everybody that listens and watches our content. And remember, sports is supposed to unite us, not divide us. Think about all the sports games that you've gone to throughout your life. I don't care if you are a teenager, whether you're a baby boomer, Gen Z, whatever. You've gone to sporting events and you've said, wow, that was a nice little outlet or few hours away from whatever's going on in my life, whatever's going on politically. I was able just to watch good competition. I was cheering for my team, or I just wanted to see a good game, whether you're cheering for this team or not, whether you're throwing down some big cash or not. Sports is fun. It's supposed to be. And there's times where we're going to have a crossover where sports can create a lot of change. But sports, we need that outlet. It needs to unite us. And we need to have conversations like this that I think can be the spark that lights the fire. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Once again, thank you so much to Steve Weatherford, Cameron Haynes, Michael Chandler, and you. If you want to check out some more of our content, obviously we got Apple and Spotify podcasts. You can check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Instagram as well, at TPUSA Breakaway. We are here because we need to give you a voice from the right side of the aisle, a right side of the conversation, because you are getting inundated with leftist, divisive, woke identity politics. Not here with Breakaway. Thanks so much for listening. See you guys soon.